experience. My name is Shane Carling, and I am here with my co-host Jordan Rouse, and we like to get in it. What is 667 experience? Well, it's six packs, six figures, and Sabbath. Basically, we talk about health, wealth, and spirituality, but we like to dive down the rabbit hole on a bunch of different topics. Jordan and I have been friends for a number of years, and we're those two guys that'll just talk about anything forever. So today we're going to have a really, really powerful topic, which I think especially in these days of this disassociated sort of strange anomaly world that we're living in, where we're merging with technology, we're separated, we're trying to get close, we're trying to integrate. It's just such a wacky thing. We're going to be talking about the speed of powerful relationships. And Jordan, why don't you start this off and tell them what made you come up with this subject?
Well, yeah, I just want to let everyone know too, before we jump too far down the rabbit hole, Shane, is that we're live on Super Chat. So if you guys want to participate with us, we can see everything live that you guys are doing right here. I just look over from time to time. So you see me look, I'm just looking to talk to you. So you can pop on YouTube, subscribe to us there. We're live right now, and you can talk to us and interact with our conversations. All right. So what happens? Speed of relationship. Well, I just wanted to talk about like the power of and the speed that it adds to your life to have powerful relationships. Relationships you can trust to handle things, trust to add momentum to your life. Why is this important to me? Well, lately I found that my life has gone on fire because I focused more on building the people around me than building myself. And the amount of momentum that has increased in me has been like tenfold. So whether that's with my wife, and our ability to handle things, our ability to push our comfort zones lately, or it has been in my business relationships and the people that have come into my life that have powered me up. These are all things that I want to talk about today and download in terms of stories and like what I faced before and what I faced after. But before I dig into that too much, Shane, I kind of want to talk to you about, how relationships have been good and how relationships have been bad in your life in the last like 10 years, because there's always a couple examples, a couple stories. Let's go deep into a story. First off, let's talk about, and people love to hear the dirt first. Let's dig into the bad relationship that brought you down, and not in terms of like business. Let's just talk about maybe a personal one that kind of got you, or maybe it was one that was feeding off of you. You're hanging out with this person who's kind of like wasting your time. We all have those relationships that aren't like allowing us to succeed. They're kind of pulling us back in. Let's talk about that. Oh, you're on mute, buddy, just so you know.
There you go. Now you can hear me. So I want to talk about a couple things on that, and that's a great question to ask. So the way I view relationships are they're like they can be enhancers for your life. You know what I mean? If your values are in alignment and if you can share a common vision, it's amazing what you can get done, the adventures you can have, the businesses that you can create, and the adversities that you can triumph and overcome together as a team. In the Bible, it says, where one is one can put 100 to flight, but two can put 10,000, right? And so there's power in unity. And so in relationships, but it goes good or bad. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Your willpower can't exceed your environment, and that includes the relationships that you have around you. And even it says bad company will ruin good morals in the Bible as well. So if you're keeping the wrong people around you, their narratives are going to spill into your mind, and you pick up that language. You know what I mean? You pick up those behaviors, you pick up those mannerisms. And so in our lives, when we're growing, it's almost like we're heading through this field of light and dark, good and bad. You know what I mean? And there's good influences, and then there's evil influences. There's the ones that want to take you down the path of corruption and down spiritual turmoil, or like self-sabotage yourself. You know what I mean? Because there's so much darkness and there's so much chaos in the world. And so a lot of people, they find themselves growing up where they're surrounded by a lot of that, and they don't really have a lot of exposure. You see kids getting into gangs. You see people deciding to choose a life of crime instead of a life of, like, it's so funny now that to choose in the day of the internet, to choose a life of crime, for example, when you could make gangsta money with like selling affiliate products or something like, Gangsters ain't got nothing on e-com guys these days. You know what I mean? Like, and it takes a few months really to learn how to be effective at that. So it's interesting, but it's a moral thing, right? That it's those choices. It's that dopamine reward system that triggers when you make bad choices and bad choices and bad choices. And I think that over time that like dulls the conscience and twists the mind a bit, right? And so there is an undoing that has to happen. And that's for people who really don't have a lot of things to put them in check, you know. And it's not like you can get rid of all bad or evil people in your life or influences, et cetera. And I don't mean people as in like I'm judging them as evil, but like the influence that they have over your life is not for your better good, right? And that would be like a dark influence. And so in my life, I'd almost say I want to go back further than 10 years. You know what I mean? Like right out of high school when I, like, I'm 38 now. So when I right out of high school, about a year or two out, you know, I was a fit guy. I was working out. And I remember I went to the gym one day and there's this guy who was like looking at me and he's like, hey, what's your name? And he just kind of said, man, you got a great physique, you know. And next thing I know, we're becoming buddies. We're going out, we're picking up chicks together. You know, he got me into the party scene and, you know, I was like a wingman, you know what I mean? But that led me down a path of basically, you know, following these people who were giving me praise, recognition, and attention in, I guess in the flesh, you know what I mean? Like not based off of character, not based off of spiritual understanding or wisdom, not based off of anything other than just like how you look. You know what I mean? How strong you are, and the girls you could get. You know what I mean? Like that was what made people cool back then around that in that circle. You know what I mean? Of people. It was about who had what, how much money you got, how big your muscles were, how bad you were. You know what I mean? And that made you cool. And so I fell into that, and that became my idol. That became my standard. That became like the image that I created for myself. And that got me into a lot of trouble. You know, I mean, it got me in trouble with the law. I made a whole lot of bad decisions. I got into all the bad drugs. I did all the bad things. And so, you know, but it was because of the company that I had around me. But deep down, there was always this kind of uneasy feeling that I was on the wrong side of the tracks. You know what I mean? And I was mean to the good people. I was mean to the good people in my life. So I was almost pushing them away, but I think good eventually just kind of came in and won the fight. So, I mean, that's 10 years, but that's 20 years ago, I suppose, almost, yeah. But 10 years ago, oh man. So 10 years ago is 2010. I just moved to Vancouver and I had met a health coach. Now, not a bad influence, actually quite a good influence. But around that, no, I don't want to use that as an example. Let me think here.
So Shane, let me talk to this a little bit. So
Yeah.
I agree with you that bad relationships can be just as expedient or even more expedient than good, because going downhill is much easier than going uphill. And people don't tend to realize that. If life seems to be rolling on really good and you seem to be around winning pretty easily, sometimes you got to question the narrative there. You know, you got to question those things in your life. Like I've had ones, and people are going to challenge me on these points. So the crowd out there listening to us can disagree or agree with me at any time, but I'm going to say some pretty controversial things about relationships tonight. And y'all can say yes, or you can say no. I'm cool with both. You can jump into our live super chat and you can talk to us about it and let us know how you feel on YouTube and tell us we're completely wrong. But I kind of live by a new credo. I don't hang out with people that don't help me build empire. So, for example, I don't go hang out with friends who are just friends anymore. That doesn't exist in my life. I've cut all of those relationships out. And it's because what I found was there's all these time suckers in your life. And a lot can and I'm going to say some things that people are not going to resonate with, but that's cool because it's just me, right? And that's what we're here to do. I've even cut family out of my life because the fact is they just suck time. I'm going to see them for what reason? You know, I'm going to see them so they can tell me about Uncle Jed and this happening or whatever in life. And they're not adding anything to where the trajectory where I'm headed, you know, my path, my destination. And I found that those relationships that just take my time and don't allow me to grow, those are the relationships I don't cut out. Like, I'm not like, you're done to me, but I avoid. Like, I literally feel when I'm in those scenarios, and you'll feel it, like I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so now I just focus on building relationships, like hanging out with yourself and like Dylan and Mo and the guys. We're building companies together. My buddy Jared, who got this big company together, and everyone I work with theirs, because we're adding, we're growing, we're building, we're protecting, we're making dollars to provide for people's lives. I feel that those are really substantial relationships. Or when I hang out with my wife and my kids, because I'm helping them build something better in theirs. And we all ascribe to a common vision, right? So I know it's kind of controversial to say, hey, maybe you should look at who are your time suckers in your life. If you have friends that are calling you and be like, hey, man, you want to go float down the river every weekend, but they do nothing but that, and they just drink and part, maybe that's not a friend. Maybe that's an enemy in disguise. And not because they don't love you in their way, but it's because it's not getting you where you're going. And so I've had these consistently in my life, like stories where it just torments you to kind of let go of people where it hurts because they're consistent, right, Shane? They're like this person right here, and they're always there, and it feels good to have them around because you have somebody in your corner, but you're in the wrong corner, right? And that's been a common theme in my life is I go from like, I always elevate. There's always someone new, a new guidance, new mentor, a person in my ear to help me to that next level and question it out. Now I've kind of got the top echelon people right here. Can't go much higher than that. Like they're here now, and they're always telling me, okay, how does that person serve you? Like what are they doing in your life? And the discussion points at this level are so much different than when I started. Because the discussion levels were like, your parents are like, well, what does that person do? Okay, well, they're not destructive. And if they're not destructive, they're okay. But then these mentors are like, hey, if they're not adding to you exponentially, they're not okay. So it's such a different discussion that's going on in my mind consistently. Now, I just want to see how you feel about that, because I'm pretty hardcore in who I let in my life now versus everybody else, or how I spend my time. Oh, you're on mute again, buddy.
I got to stop muting myself. Okay. So here's my thoughts on this are exactly that. So the older I get, the smaller my circle gets. And the more I understand that to get into the inner circle of my life, to allow someone to have a certain level of influence in my life where they can speak things, I qualify people. I don't let just any old person say something into my life. If they're not someone who if they're coming, if like, now don't get me wrong on this. Sometimes someone will say something that you probably need to hear. You know what I mean? Like one time I was riding my bike with my little Chihuahua through Stanley Park, and this lady, she was like, hey, you should put them on a leash. There's coyotes out here. I'm like, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll let her speak into my life with that, because even though she barked at me, you know what I mean? Like she was sounded mad. She probably maybe she lost a dog out there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, well, you know, like that's okay. You know, she yelled at me like I was a snot-nosed little kid running around and doing bad things. And that's how I felt. But I I get it. So I do let people speak in my life if what they're saying makes sense. But when someone's offering an opinion on something or an idea, like, you know, the people I've surrounded myself with are like very visionary and business orientated and technical, or very spiritual and very compassionate and empathetic and very well developed. They've done a lot of self-work. And so when they are offering something, it's coming from a place of selflessness, not selfishness. And so it's really important to learn how to discern the information that you get into your life. You should have someone who can criticize you. You should allow for that, because if you think you're above reproach, you have become a fool. If you think that crap doesn't stink and you don't do anything wrong, you've just jumped off the cliff of intelligence all the way down the loony bin of, you know, fanatical, delusional narcissism. And so you have to be accountable, and you have to be able to accept criticism. It's very important, but it's the right type of criticism that you have to look for. And so like Jordan, if Jordan gives me advice, he could say, hey, Shane, you know, sometimes you ramble too much on this, or, hey, you shouldn't swear so much, or, hey, you get it. Like, I understand where he's coming from. Right. And I understand who Jordan is, because him and I have logged in enough hours. Now, your inner circle, I want to get back to this conversation without going too far off, is you should look at it like you have gates in front of your mind. Okay. And anyone who's allowed in, you don't just let them in. There has to be a interview process. And someone told me this a long time ago, and I didn't listen a few times. And because I didn't listen a few times, every time I created allowed someone close into my life, and I broke this rule, that person ended up causing damage in my life. Now, here's the rule. No one gets into your inner circle for at least 2 years. And you got to spend a lot of time interacting, seeing that person engage, listening to their conversations, their banter, their idle conversations, if they have them, how they view their relationships, other people's relationships. You got to view and analyze the intentionality or the spirit that they're of, because a lot of people, let's just call it's a demon haunted world. Okay. And there's a lot of spiritual forces out there. And if people aren't in control, then the spirits are in control of them. That's my opinion. All right. Now, I look at it like it's very important that I watch how someone behaves in so many different aspects. And then I gain respect. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Now, I never assume the worst, but I watch as they build up towards who they are. And after 2 years of engaging with someone, you should have gathered enough data to allow that person to move another step closer into your inner circle. But again, you've got to know who their friends are, the kind of books they read, the things that they do, the people that they have in their life, and the environment and how they keep themselves. And if it's someone who's respectable and presentable and has qualities that you admire and virtues that you appreciate and are in alignment with, then and they're honest, authentic, forthcoming, and there's no deception in them, then you can allow that person to come a little bit more into your life, like to step more into that inner circle. And so as people grow and I watch and I learn, certain people who have these attributes come into the circle. I keep the circle small. You don't really need more than 7 or 8 people, including yourself, in your inner circle, right? Jesus had 12 disciples, but he's God. So, you know what I mean? I'm good with like 8 or 9 or so, you know what I mean? Like keep it small, because when I let bad people into my life who I thought were good, certain times, I guess, as you build something or you're doing something, behaviors, ideas, hidden philosophies, skeletons in the closet, and perspectives or viewpoints, which can be highly reactive, can come to the surface, which, if you're doing business with someone, or if you're doing something with someone, if you're creating a project or whatever, these types of value issues can start to bubble up and cause dissension, cause basically a total derailing of your success, their success. And basically it's not like they're a bad person. It's just your values might not be aligned at all, right? You might have completely different perspectives on very critical, important things. So it's an interview process. And some people, hey, but I really like this person. We logged in a lot of hours. No, 2 years, give it 2 years, and at least 2 years. Something good worth building. That's something worth building good is worth building right. And that goes for relationships.
Yeah, I would say those are some pretty firm rules. And I think the time thing, definitely to watch someone grow is important. There's some other narratives to talk about. Like, I don't just abandon friends. I try to keep them lifted up, right? Because there's times where I've fallen from like kind of grace. And so have you, sort of, Shane, like in each other's lives. But when that happens, and that's a good friend, you'll know how to lift them up. You know how to support them. It's like a good relationship. It grows over time, and you know how to nurture it. You know how to water the tree. So that's not the kind of thing you cut. When someone's falling a little bit, you're supposed to be there to pick them up. But if they're a constant drain and they're not helping you get where you go, then that's where you have to cut that lever, and you have to find someone who's going to help you get there. The fun part of life is actually exploring what that means and getting really clear on where you want to go. So I've had some interesting times with that, Shane. Same with me and you. Like we've had times where we're in each other's lives a lot, and then we go through a build mode that's kind of like divergent, and then we've come back together again. And I think good friendships over time do that. They kind of go in and out, but they're kind of always going up, but it's like this weird twisty thing we do. That's my dance move of the night right there. Just frame it up, right? So the idea of speed of relationships is really important. I want to speak to this because in my personal business lately, I've had some great people. I'll call them by name because I want to give some recognition here. Is like my buddy Ryson came into my life, helped our company ISM Sales Group kind of go to the next level, open up some doors, took a lot of pressure off my shoulders, and made us go higher. Right. And the idea is is that relationship, even though I didn't know him that long, I knew his spirit, his heart, because we spent a lot of time getting to know each other. And for like 3 weeks in a row, he spent every day as he started with our company at my house. And we were training together, logging hours together, getting in the thick of it. I was working with accounts with him, understanding how he thought, how he worked out problems, what his personal life looked like, different things like that. And that's really important. You can log a lot of time in relationship. It doesn't have to be like 2 years. It can be in shorter periods of time, but you have to be putting yourself in scenarios of stress. And people don't understand this. If you're not in those scenarios of stress and everything's peachy, you don't know how someone reacts. It does not matter what someone's like on a beach day. It matters what it's like when you're getting shot at, or you're on an army line. Like, whoa, is that person gonna like bolt this way and you're left holding the gun yourself? The idea is put yourself in those stressful scenarios in relationships, do challenges and obstacles together, make sure they're pushing together, and that will kind of shorten that time to make a good invitation into the inner circle. I think that's one notation of it. Another thing is understand someone can't elevate if they can't get over their basic needs in life. So what do I mean by this? There's an old adage, biblical adage, meaning you can never hear a good sermon over a grumbling stomach, meaning for someone to hear about God, you have to feed them first. And that's why you come into churches, they usually give you a bunch of food, right? The idea is the same. If someone doesn't have their basic needs met, they can't elevate. There's been times in my life where I'm worried about my bills. Like, how am I going to make my mortgage? How am I going to make this? How am I going to do that? Oh man, I just lost this in this company. How am I going to do that? I did not have the space in my head to say, I'm going to grow another business over here. Well, Shane was over here growing a business at rapid fire, right? So that is kind of the how it can sway. But the quality of the individual to advance and the value they have inside them, they don't really change. They either have that value of forward progress or they don't have the value of forward progress. So you got to identify, is that there? Is that person devoted to something bigger than their bank account, bigger than just achievement and recognition in life? Are they heading towards something that's transcendental, something bigger? They ascribe to a methodology. Even if they're on their deathbed, they're thinking about plans to build something more. You can't teach that. And that's what I kind of look for in my circle, is that devotion to something greater. Like, they don't believe in retirement. Retirement's for the dead. In my friend group, no one believes in retirement. So you probably won't be friends with us if you believe in retirement. We think it's for old retired white people or something like that. That's what they do. Like, our last parents' generation retired. We don't do that. So Shane, tell me what you think about that, because it's some contentious stuff.
I think that you have to, the truth of a relationship is discovered in fire. And that's where it's either forged or burnt. And I've had relationships that, I will fight for love. I will fight for friendship. I will, ask for forgiveness. I will make the step forward to reconcile. I understand that without the willingness to reconcile, forgiveness is just bitterness in disguise if you're not willing to reconcile. Okay. And so what reconcile means is it means getting back together with that friend. You know what I mean? Like, being friends, restoring the unity and the love and the trust in that friendship as though the pain had never happened. Right now, this is a big heart issue, because some people have a bad experience with a friend, a blow up, an argument, or a fight, and then they're less friends with that person afterwards, right? I have had that happen with a few friends, right? Where we were less friends afterwards. Why? Not because of my willingness, but it was just because there was bitterness inside the heart. Okay, bitterness. The seeds of bitterness go deep. Right. And when you have those bitterness, it's like, oh, there's a wedge between us now. I don't want to deal with the energy because, if I have to deal with that energy, then that makes me uncomfortable. And if I'm uncomfortable, then I don't want to have to. I'm going to go on my lane over here. You stay in your lane over there. Right. I don't need to do with you. You cause them stress. You know what I mean? When you have that type of attitude, that's not a sign of emotional maturity. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's a sign of emotional digression. You know what I mean? To not want to to live in a place where you have labeled, judged, or branded some other human being as such and such. It's a very low vibration and it's not good energy. You know what I mean? You have to hope the best, see the best, and want the best for every single human being, and hope that for and pray for their deliverance and salvation. You know what I mean? Especially those who come against you. Now, here's the ticket. I've had a friendship, actually several, where we went through adversity. Um, and we've had blowouts. And then what we realized was that that business or that adversity or that dilemma or that disagreement or that misunderstanding or whatever was so small compared to the power and the beauty in our friendship. And so those friendships through the fire were forged into something that has become indestructible. It's dynamite. It's a whole other level of relationship now. You know, you and I have had some fires, right? We've also fought side by side in situations in life, you know. And I have a really good friend named Steve, and you know, him and I have become best friends because of we went through some adversity. We really challenged each other. We actually almost fell out of friendship. You know what I mean? There was a yeah, you know, wanted me to help build out this whole thing. Long story short, man, that's a whole other story. But man, that was freaking hilarious. At the time, it wasn't so funny. But now we look back and we're like, that was like the greatest freaking moment, the landmark moment that actually forged this friendship into the future. So yeah, you know, the fire will make you or it will break you. It will build you and make you harder, stronger, better, smarter, faster, leaner, or it will rip you to shreds and burn you up into ash, and you're going to be nothing. You know what I mean? So that's how the best relationships are actually formed, because it's so easy to be easy friends. A real friend shows up when it's not easy. That's how you know you're friends.
And, you know, when you're very discerning in your friendships, people see that too. So when they get in your group, they really value your friendship because they know what you can bring, but they also know who you cut out. Right. And like, I think you said something really good. Like, I give grace to a lot of people in my life, but they don't hang out in our circle. For example, in my family, there's alcoholism and stuff. Those people aren't allowed in my life. It's not that I don't give them grace. I call it grace because I think forgiveness is asked for, and we're going to talk about that on another episode. But the idea of still loving them, but you saying enough is enough, and saying you have to adhere to a certain standard to be here is okay as well. I think people need to hear that, because it is okay to cut relationships off if they're destructive. Too many people continue relationships, whether it's mother, father, uncle, brother, sister, whatever it is, because they're blood. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. You get to choose your family. One of the most impactful statements from a biblical standard is when Jesus' parents or mother came in, and his brother and sisters, he said, who is my brother? Who is my sister? Right. And he was referring to that the people that choose God are the people that are his brothers, his sisters, his mother. Those are the people that are close to him. And if you fall off of that in any way, that's not belonging to the kingdom. Right. So remember, you get to choose. The best thing about being an adult and a free person is you get to choose the people in your life. This is, I think, the greatest gift we're given. Like, I'm closer to Shane than I am to my own brother, but because we're in different spaces. My brother's a chiropractor and he lives 500 miles away from me. So I get to spend more time with someone who's in business, but I still love my brother immensely. Like, he's an amazing dude and he's got an amazing family, but it's just different kind of paths in life. But if I ever drop, like, there's great relationships you can have. If I ever phone someone, I have probably like 50 friends I can call, and they're going to show up and be in my life if I'm in a time of need. But those are good relationships to have as well. And we're not discounting those. And people will travel in and out of your life when they're required on your mission, right? That's been put before you. And that's okay too. Don't worry about servicing every relationship under the sun. Oh, it's this person's birthday. I need to get a gift for this. You know, if you're going to do something for someone, make it impactful and make it on like, make it a surprise. You know, don't make it like everybody else does on a birthday. Make it special. Make the recognition important. So why don't we talk about, Shane, a little bit about recognition? I think that would be a good idea. You're really good at that in terms of friendships and things. Shane, you're on mute, 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 mute.
Sorry, man. So going back to that, the recognition thing, here's a couple things I've learned is a powerful friendship is where you see the best in the other person, where you believe the best in the other person, and you hope for the best in that other person, and you speak the best into that other person. You know, when we're growing up, it's funny that kids are mean and that like chipping on each other, you know, making kind of sarcastic jokes. What ends up happening is like if you're not building like even a joke, it's all an up and down with the emotional bank account. You know what I mean? And so if you're investing good words, good light, good energy into your friendships, into the way that you see that person, then what happens is you start to help them continuously reinforce a more positive self-image of themselves. And that starts to come back to you from them. But if you're chipping away at the other person, hey, man, you stupid hat, this and that, like making fun of someone, like you can do that in jest with friends, and that's understandable. It's okay. But it's not okay to have a unhealthy balance of that. Okay, like the odd sometimes Jordan and I'll joke at each other, whatever, but there's way more complimenting, way more praise, validation, recognition, and edification than there is joking around or making the odd joke, right? Because even if you're doing that, it starts to be like, man, subconsciously you'll be like, man, every time I'm with this person, you know, like they're joking, it's almost like too much. And I think we've all had those friends where they went too overboard into the mockery and the scoffing and the joking around, and that's not expedient. That's not good for us. And so if it's not building you up, it's tearing you down, but you never stay the same. You're never the same. You're always growing or diminishing. And so which direction are your friends pulling you? And so the real question is, which direction are you pushing or pulling your friends? Are you pushing your friends away, or are you pulling them closer? Are you pushing them up to raise to their own higher standards? Are you holding them with unwavering vision of who they can be and into their potential? Or are you pulling them down and holding them back from reaching their potential with your mouth, your words, your thoughts? And so it's very important that you understand these principles, because if you aren't going to be a light in your relationships and friendships, then you're darkness. We are light. We should be light. You have so much power that you can speak over the people in your life, and it makes such a difference. I want you to think about right now, if you're listening to this, remember the last time a friend who you really looked up to said something amazing to you and they believed in you. Where did that take you? I know Jordan gets a lot of compliments about he's so smart, such a smart guy, right? My friends compliment deeply. Hey, Shane, we love your music. Man, your music is good. Man, your music is, it's because of that attention that makes it reinforces the self-image, the value. The higher the self-image, the higher your vibration, the better you become. So it's super crucial.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, Shane. I think there's an old statement. And the old statement says there's no such thing as neutrality. You can speak life or you can speak death, but there's nothing in between. And so to tell a story for you guys, my wife, she came from a very like, I would call it emotionally abusive kind of upbringing, where her stepfather and her stepbrother would constantly say little things, those little things, you know, that kind of add up. So I can't joke now sarcastically with my wife. That is like a thing you just don't do. You know how you can say like, hey, nice hair or something like that. You can't, like in my home, you just can't do that. So I've learned the power of little words that compound, you know, and one of my demeanors was sarcasm. When I first married my wife, I guarantee it's not my demeanor anymore. Like I've narrowed that down to like 2% if it was like 100 before. And I realized the power of like building a relationship. As you said, speaking light, you got to ask yourself before you say a little bit of sarcasm, why am I saying this? Right? If you want to say something intentional to someone, say it intentionally. You know, that's kind of the power of it. The thing that I admire most about Shane, and I think that this comes out in droves, and if you follow his content and stuff, he really has no fear. And you know, that comes without filter, which is great, but he's unafraid of people's opinions. He's really not. he's been through it. So that fearlessness and that courageousness is what a lot of his audience responds to, because in their life they don't get as much of that. They're either in a job where they can't say what they think, or they're in a relationship where they can't express themselves properly. And so that's a big magnetic draw that exists. So that's speaking life. It's kind of just being who you are, right? And allowing that to come out a little bit. So a lot of the worst talk in the world I find with people, especially myself up until a few years ago, was actually how I talked to myself. You know, what do you look in the mirror and say to yourself? You know, you can take yourself to darkness really quick, like with a few triggers. I don't know about you, Shane, but when that bad voice gets in my head, I can feel pretty small pretty fast. Like that little inclination of doubt all of a sudden turns, that little raindrop of doubt turns into an ocean, and your boat's being thrashed around all of a sudden on that sea of doubt, just in a moment. You know, and just in a moment with one word from somebody, and all of a sudden it just, you don't know what it is, just a trigger there. And so remember, if you're sowing doubt, especially in your business relationships in any way, watch what you say, be very intentional, because the worst thing is to sow a little bit of doubt in somebody's mind from a conversation. You have to go for it until the ends of the earth in business, and just believe wholeheartedly, even if you're wrong. Okay, it's better to fail and be wrong than to think you were wrong the whole time. Like, the idea is just go for it. That's one of the things I admire with Shane. He just goes for it. It's not like there's this, one of our mentors, Eric, he said, you know, one thing that pisses me off in life is them toe dippers. You know, those people who go to the pool and they dip their toes in the pool. He's like, I push those sons right in the pool, right? That's what he says. And Shane just jumps in that pool wholeheartedly with like weights on his back. He's like, let's go. So if you guys want to admire someone who just follows course in life, that's what Shane brings you. Like when he says, I go all in with something, you don't understand till you hang out with him. You don't. Like with me, I'm conservative. And that's what you guys have to understand. Is I go slowly into things. Shane is the opposite. Shane's got a jet engine strapped to his back like Wile E. Coyote, and this is going to work out or it's not going to work out.
Yeah, I will go till I will go till gone.
Yeah, with rocket fuel on your back, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the speed of a good relationship. So a lot of my fear in doing businesses, for example, we just started another one together, which is this Affiliate Nation over here. And a lot of the things that kicked me forward were the passion, the certainty, and just the go for it of Dylan and Shane, and just their ability to conduct and say, let's go for it sort of idea. And that's not in my nature. I'm not as like, yeah, that sounds great, let's do that. And maybe that's why I'm not the outwardly entrepreneur. I'm the intrapreneur style person, meaning I work in companies and I build them up after they're started usually. So this is a new phase for me, being an entrepreneur with you guys side by side. A little bit freaking out, but that's fine. And the idea is those little speed of relationships. And so if you have those people, if you're blessed enough to have those people in your life that push you out of your comfort zone consistently, then that's awesome. That's awesome. And Shane, can you tell me, like, how do you identify when you need a new relationship in your life to push you harder?
Well, if you're not doing anything, you know, it's really easy to kick back and not engage with life, and without community, without people who are trying to pull that out of you, it's actually, it can be difficult to feel inspired enough to do anything. If you're not needed, then that's a bad place to be. I mean, it's kind of a, you know, I went out on the 7-day weekend quest to free myself financially, whatever, and ended up, you know, creating some passive income. And one of the saddest places is in the place of not actually being needed or useful or purpose filled anymore. And so I would rather just go all in doing something, but you need friends to get you accountable, to pull something out of you, to create with, to share victories with, to mourn over defeats with. And so, reframe the question for me there, Jordan. I want to.
Well, hold on. I want to circle back to that because one of the most impactful things that's come out of your mouth for me in years, and this isn't denigrating the things that you say to me on a consistent basis, but you said something with absolute vulnerability to me, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. But you said to me, Jordan, the reason I love network marketing is because there I feel valuable, I feel needed, and I have a massive impact on people's lives. And that's the reason I do it. It's not about money. It's not about anything else. It's just that there I'm needed, I'm valuable, and I'm on fire. And that said to me is like you were really clear on why you were doing something, like on a heart level. Like you had that connection. You're like, okay, like I'm recognized in this space, and that's why I'm here. And so that was one of the most impactful things. I was like, wow, you've really got clarity going now, man, from years ago to today. That statement, it was just off the cuff too. This wasn't like a rehearsed thing. We weren't talking about values or something like that. That was just Shane being Shane. I was like, ooh, oh, that was deep. And I don't even think you said it.
Yeah, no, I do remember saying that. I do, but it's because can't remember exactly what we're talking about, but what gives me purpose, and yeah, if you're idle hands are the devil's playground, you know what I mean, or that's where depression or lack of just good feelings kick in. I'm telling you, if you know how to fill your day with effective relationships and being productive, every day takes forever. Like today has been a very long day for me. And I love the fact that my days seem like weeks. Before my weeks used to seem like days. And that's not a good thing. I don't think, so I think one of the saddest things we can say is time is going by so fast. Because when you say that, it really shows a lack of presence. Presence is when you bring your attention into the moment and you're alive in that moment. That's presence. And in that moment it seems like a long time, and time moves so slowly when you're being present. But if you're not fulfilled, and if you aren't purpose driven, if you don't have vision, and if you're not moving towards something and being a go-giver, if you're not needed, right, then time does go quickly, and it's gone before you realize what happened. And so I think that one of the greatest teachers in my life was having moments where I wasn't needed and realizing the disparity of it.
Yeah. So those are like big topics for people to understand that relationships are what define us and why we act. Okay. No one out there is completely solo motivated. If you put a human, the worst punishment you can give a human being is by putting them in isolation. And that's every human being. That's not just any human being. It's every human being. In isolation for an extended period of time is the worst torture you can inflict upon someone. So, it's weird that we put people in the loony bin and then put them in rooms alone. Like that's going to help the guy who's crazy, right? The idea that relationships power us up and can give us speed, or they can take us away from that speed and purpose. So you guys have to be I like how Shane said it. You got to qualify people, and you're allowed to be judgmental. For all these people to say, do not judge. I agree. Don't be standing in judgment saying I'm better than you. What you do is use discernment and say, is this person going to add or subtract from my equation? Because there is no neutrality and there's no need for it, because you can get addition, multiplication, even if you find the right person. But if you get the wrong person, you're going to get subtraction or even division of your life. Okay. That is what I've learned. And if you do what Shane said here and you qualify things and you look for speed of relationships and you're willing to build into people and sacrifice the time, your time, to build that relationship quickly, then you can have those things quickly as well. But don't go wholeheartedly in without doing the heart stuff first. I find that one thing I see in relationships is too much, especially new love relationships, is they're really into each other, but they're not actually discovering each other. They're kind of just like living for fun, to say it nicely. And they're not actually learning what it is to go through trials and tribulations to test one another to be. Right. So be very careful in how you qualify people and how you structure your life and defining your purpose and what you need. They all kind of work together. So I think that's good for tonight, man. I know you got a music thing in the park. You're going to go rock tonight. So
yeah, that's right. I'm off. I'm going to go do a little gig, but this has been a lot of fun. And Jordan, I love you, buddy. Thank you so much for this. And guys, if you're watching, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. The channel is the 667 Experience. Go look us up. Make sure you join our Facebook page as well. And stay tuned because every Monday we are doing another live episode of the 667 Experience. 6 packs, 6 figures, and 7. You guys have a great night.
Take care, guys.